My parents were obsessed with absolute fairness. They spent a small fortune customizing a wheelchair for me that was an exact replica of my older brother's, pushing us out to the garden every day to bask in the sun. Passers-by praised them, calling them saints for refusing to abandon their two disabled sons. My father would gently wipe the drool from the corner of my mouth, and my mother would slice apples, dividing them into mathematically equal halves. But no one knew how we got here. It happened 3 days after my brother was paralyzed from the neck down in a car crash. My father took a claw hammer and shattered my kneecaps. As I screamed in agony from the fracturing bone, my mother wept, holding me tight and whispering in my ear with the gentlest voice, "Mike, baby, don't be afraid. Mommy is right here. Your brother is such a proud man. He cannot stand the thought of being wheelchair-bound while you can still run and jump. You are the younger brother. Sit in the wheelchair with him, okay? That way, he won't feel like the universe is unfair to him." And so, I never stood up again, until the day the house caught fire, and the flames crept toward our wheelchairs. I watched my panicked parents desperately push my brother's wheelchair, only for it to get wedged in the burning doorframe, and I, calmly, stood up from my seat. Neil, my father, Richard, held a heavy claw hammer, its cold steel gleaming under the harsh ceiling light. I looked at him, then at my brother, Dominic, who sat staring blankly from the couch. 3 days ago, Dominic had wrapped his sports car around a tree while street racing, paralyzing himself from the neck down. "Dad, what are you saying?" I said. "Neil." Richard stepped forward and kicked the back of my knee. My legs gave out, and I crashed onto the cold tiles, a sharp pain shooting through my kneecaps. My mother, Helen, walked over and knelt beside me, her eyes red and swollen. "Mike, your brother, he is never going to walk again." "I know, Mom. I will take care of him." "No, you don't understand." Helen shook her head, tears spilling down her cheeks. "Your brother is a proud man. He cannot accept being a helpless cripple while you get to walk around perfectly fine. It is simply not fair." A dark, terrifying realization washed over me. Richard loomed over me like an executioner. "To keep things fair, you are going to sit in a wheelchair with him." With those words, he raised the claw hammer high. I scrambled to crawl away, but Helen threw her arms around me from behind, pinning me down. "Mike, don't blame us. We are doing this for the family, for your brother." "No, please, stop." Crack. The heavy steel head came down with a sickening thud, followed by the dry, splintering sound of bone. My vision went black. The scream died in my throat, turning into a desperate gasp for air. Richard raised the hammer again, lining it up with my right leg. "Stop, Dad, please." "Perfectly balanced," he muttered. Crack. Another violent impact, and the sensation in my right leg vanished instantly. I curled into a ball on the floor, cold sweat soaking through my shirt. Helen finally let go of me, cradling my face in her hands. "Mike, sweetheart, don't be afraid. Mommy is right here. See? Now it is fair. Your brother won't feel so miserable when he sees you are just like him." The agony was so intense that every breath tasted like copper. They brought in a back alley doctor who smelled heavily of cheap whiskey to sloppily secure my legs with wooden splints and bandages. To ensure there was no paper trail, they didn't even allow him to use anesthesia. "Grin and bear it," the doctor muttered impatiently, pocketing a thick stack of cash from Richard. "The bones aren't completely crushed. With some rest, they will heal. Remember, he just needs to rest. Don't let them actually heal," Richard whispered, his voice low. The doctor let out a greasy chuckle. "Don't worry, Mr. Mike's father. I will make sure those legs never carry weight again." After they left, I was abandoned on the cold floor. Summoning every ounce of my remaining strength, I slipped my phone from my pocket and dialed my aunt, Beatrice. "Aunt Beatrice, help me." "Dad," I sobbed, frantically explaining what had just happened. The other end of the line fell dead silent. Then her voice returned, cold and disappointed. "Mike, why must you be so incredibly selfish? Your brother's life is ruined. Can't you show a little empathy for what your parents are going through? What is so terrible about sitting in a wheelchair to support your brother? You are his younger brother. Stop acting out and be a good boy." Click. The line went dead. The last flicker of hope in my world was extinguished. The next day, a brand new, custom-ordered wheelchair was delivered to the house. It was a perfect match to Dominic's, right down to the color of the leather cushion. My legs were encased in plaster, and Richard tossed me into the seat like a sack of garbage. My parents pushed the two of us around the neighborhood park every afternoon, telling anyone who would listen about their family tragedy, proudly declaring they would never abandon their boys. The neighbors marveled at them, calling them the most loving parents in the world. Richard would gently wipe the cold sweat from my brow, calling me a brave boy. Helen would slice an apple into two mathematically identical halves, ensuring Dominic and I received the exact same amount. They basked in the praise. Dominic's paralysis made him venomous. "Mike, my cup is empty. Fetch me some water." Gritting my teeth against the dull ache, I rolled my chair over to pour him water, but the temperature was slightly too warm. He instantly lashed out, throwing the scalding tea directly onto the back of my hand. "Are you an idiot? Are you trying to burn me to death?" My skin blistered instantly. Hearing the commotion, Helen walked in. She saw my raw red hand and Dominic's furious face. "Mike, how can you be so careless? Your brother is fragile. He cannot have hot water. Don't you know any better?" She took the cup, refilled it with lukewarm water, and handed it to Dominic, never once looking at my injury. Because my legs hadn't healed properly, the rainy days brought an agonizing, deep-seated pain. But before long, Helen confiscated all of my prescription pain pills. "Mike, your brother is so weak. The doctor recommended high-protein supplements for him, and they are incredibly expensive. Be a good boy and bear with the pain so we can save that money for his nutrition, okay?" I stared at her. "Mom, if I had been the one in the car crash, would you have broken Dominic's legs?" Her face stiffened for a fraction of a second. "Don't speak such nonsense. Both of you are my flesh and blood. Now stop overthinking things." Without the medication, I spent my nights twisting in agony. Meanwhile, from the next room, I could hear Dominic shouting happily as he played video games. To accommodate Dominic's physical therapy, they converted my bedroom into a gym and banished me to the damp, dark basement. There were no windows, and the air smelled of mold. Dominic's cruelty escalated. He would intentionally ram his electric wheelchair into my food tray, laughing as I scrambled on the dirty floor to salvage my dinner. He used nail clippers to shred my remaining clothes, piece by piece. "Why does a cripple need nice clothes? You should wear rags just like me. That is what I call fair." When I showed the shredded fabric to Helen, she only sighed. "Your brother is in so much pain, Mike. He didn't mean it. Just tolerate it a little. It helps him vent." "Tolerate it? Then who is going to tolerate my pain?" "Mike!" Helen's voice turned sharp. "Do you have to be so incredibly selfish? Your brother has lost his legs. What more do you want from him?" Looking at her, a bitter laugh escaped my lips. In this house, Dominic's suffering was a tragedy. Mine was just selfishness. "What is this garbage? It tastes like cardboard. I want those artisanal cinnamon cinnamon rolls from the trendy bakery downtown. Now, during lunch, Dominic swept a plate of vegetables off the table. The sharp shatter of porcelain echoed through the quiet house. Helen immediately rushed to soothe him. Of course, sweetheart. Don't be angry. Mommy will go buy them for you right now. I want you both to go. Push me there, Dominic demanded. But what about Mike? Richard hesitated, glancing at me shoved into the corner. Who cares about that useless waste? Lock him in the house. Starve him for a day. Let us see if he still dares to talk back to Mom. Dominic sneered. They locked the front door from the outside, leaving me trapped inside, their laughter fading down the street. I slowly rolled my wheelchair over to the basement entrance. Once they were gone, the weakness on my face evaporated. I reached into a hidden compartment under my seat cushion and pulled out a duplicate key to the basement door I had secretly made months ago. I unlocked the door, rolled inside, and locked it behind me. Moving aside a heavy box of old clutter, I exposed a loose floor tile, uncovering a small metal box wrapped in waterproof plastic. Inside lay rows of foreign-labeled prescription bottles and a small handheld muscle stimulator. That back alley doctor had taken my father's money, but he had also taken mine. I had offered him my entire life savings to angle the hammer strikes to avoid the crucial nerves and joints, fracturing the bone, but leaving the structure intact for recovery. These specialized medications and the therapy device were his after-sales service. I rolled up my loose trousers, revealing my cast-free legs. The knees were still misshapen, but the swelling was completely gone. I applied the medicated cream around my joints and attached the electrode pads to my leg muscles. Turning on the switch, a low electrical current pulsed through my dormant muscles, sending waves of sharp pain through my legs. I grit my teeth, sweat pooling on my forehead. 10 minutes later, I turned off the machine, leaned against the wall, and placed my bare feet on the floor. The solid pressure of the ground felt both foreign and familiar. My legs trembled violently, but summoning every ounce of strength, I slowly shifted my weight onto my own feet. I stood up. Though I was shaking, though a tearing pain flared in my knees, I was standing on my own 2 feet. For the past 10 months, every time they left the house, I used the time for physical therapy, progressing from muscle activation to bending, and finally, to standing. I took a deep breath, bent my knees, and pushed back up into a perfect squat. My strength was returning, piece by piece. Suddenly, the rumble of a car engine echoed from the driveway. They were back. I immediately packed my gear, replaced the floor tile, rolled back to the living room, and adjusted my trousers, transforming back into the helpless cripple. Just as I positioned myself, the front door clicked open. Helen walked in carrying a bag of cinnamon rolls. Seeing me, she frowned. Why are you out of your corner? Didn't we tell you to stay put? I kept my head down, silent. She headed straight for Dominic's room, but my eyes caught something on the floor where she had walked. A tiny brown glass bottle, one of my empty medication vials, lay glinting on the hardwood. Helen saw it too. She stopped, bent down, and picked it up. Sniffing the medicinal scent, her face turned instantly dark. You betrayed me. She threw the empty vial at my feet. What is this, Mike? Explain this to me right now. Richard and Dominic rushed out at her shout. Dominic smirked from his wheelchair. Oh, sneaking drugs, are we? What? Don't want to sit in a wheelchair with me anymore? Trying to stand up? I didn't. How dare you lie to us? Richard roared, kicking my wheelchair. The force flipped the chair, sending me crashing to the floor. My head slammed against the wood, and my legs twisted in agonizing angles. We have sacrificed everything to keep this family fair, and you are sneaking around behind our backs. Richard lunged, grabbing me by the hair and dragging me up. Did you think we were being too soft on you? Helen stood by, her maternal warmth entirely gone. Mike, you have disappointed us so deeply. We treated you like family, and you only think of yourself. It was just, the pain was too much. I gasped. Pain? Does your brother not feel pain? He has lost his legs forever. Your little ache is nothing compared to his sacrifice. Helen's voice turned shrill. You promised me. You said you would stay with him. They no longer believed a word I said. Richard brought a heavy rope, binding me tightly to the wheelchair, my hands pinned behind my back so I couldn't move a finger. Let us see how you sneak drugs now. Let us see how you try to stand. They pushed me into the corner of the dining room and starved me for 2 solid days, eating lavish meals right in front of my face. Dominic rolled his wheelchair over, holding a glistening piece of meat right in front of my mouth. Want some? Beg me. I closed my eyes and turned my face away. Ha, look at his pride. He laughed, popping the meat into his mouth. So delicious. Too bad a traitor like you only deserves to smell it. 2 days later, they finally untied me. I thought the punishment was over. I was wrong. They intercepted my university acceptance letter, a top-tier school that had been my dream for 3 years. Richard tore the letter to shreds right in front of me. Why would a cripple need college? You will only be a burden to the school. He pulled out his phone and transferred my entire college fund straight to Dominic's account. Dominic, your parents bought you the latest VR gaming pod. Now you can travel the virtual world from the comfort of home. Helen stroked my head, her voice returning to its gentle tone as she delivered my final sentence. Mike, you don't need school anymore. You will stay home and take care of your brother. That is your duty now. The VR pod arrived, and Dominic spent 16 hours a day inside the machine. I became his full-time servant, carrying his waste and cleaning his body during his brief breaks. He grew more abusive, striking me whenever something displeased him. One day, while he was deep in a high-immersion horror game, I slipped into his system. I turned the pain simulation parameter to the maximum and locked the emergency exit program. Soon, terrified screams and violent thrashing echoed from the pod. 10 minutes later, silence fell. When my parents returned and opened the hatch, a foul stench hit them. Dominic had lost control of his bowels, ruining the expensive interior. More importantly, his thrashing had severed the core circuitry, completely frying the machine. The manufacturer inspected the damage and refused a refund, demanding $10,000 in cleaning fees and penalties. My parents spent the last of their savings and dumped all their fury on me. It is all your fault. You are a curse on this family. Richard backhanded me, sending me to the floor. After the incident, Dominic became extremely unstable, throwing hysterical tantrums daily. One night, I heard my parents whispering in the living room. We can't go on like this. Dominic's mind is breaking, my mother said. It is because of Mike's legs. Seeing him with legs makes Dominic miserable. We shouldn't have kept them intact, Richard growled.